पीछे से रखो ये ये ओम का 90,000 ये हम विराट कोहली ने कर ली
Thank you for coming. We are going to be discussing many different things, Bitcoins, crypto, NFTs, most of which the discussion will be successful if and only if we get feedback and questions from the audience. So I would urge you to ask the simplest or the most complicated of questions. I have a certain background in crypto and NFT space, and I'm joined by two more experts in this space. So please don't be shy and please ask questions. The title of this talk or this panel discussion was Emerging Markets. Now, anybody in the world of finance will tell you, if 10 years ago we said emerging markets, you would think about investments made into India, China, Indonesia. Here, when we talk about emerging markets, we're talking about the crypto markets, the NFT markets on the Ethereum chain or on the Bitcoin chain. So how terminology itself has changed so drastically when we say emerging markets. So yeah, please ask questions. We have introducing the two people here. Vikram is the executive director and former CMO of ZepPay, India's oldest crypto exchange. I will let him further introduce himself. Parth here now leads Web3 investments for CoinSwitch, an investment banker turned blockchain researcher and now part of an institutional platform. But I will urge you to please go ahead and now take a seat.
I came to crypto sort of by a roundabout path. My first career was teaching writing and communication at the University of Florida in the US. And so I mainly worked with creative type people and journalists teaching writing. And then I wandered to Chicago where I had taught myself how to trade. So I knew about futures and options trading, and I kind of accidentally got into being a market analyst and then working for a derivatives exchange. So I had some of that background as well in trading. And then in 2019, I was about to take a job, believe it or not, as an agent with a private security firm. And an old student of mine from the University of Florida called and said, "Hey, I just bought ZepPay, and do you want to be CMO?" And I said, "I'm about to take a job being James Bond. You picked the worst time ever." And he's like, "James Bond, or you've been dreaming about going to India. Here's your chance. You can go to India, help me bring ZepPay back from the dead." Because this was 2019, and those of you who know a little of the history, Blas can speak more to this. The RBI had banned banks from working with crypto exchanges. And I mean, I'll be open about it. ZepPay was bleeding cash, about $500,000 a month, I think, at that point. And this is a company that was the first, and in 2017, just before the ban, we probably had close to 70% market share. And then when it hit, a whole lot of things changed. It opened up opportunities for new exchanges like WazirX and also CoinSwitch. But a whole lot of people who had gotten into Bitcoin and crypto trading in 2017 when there was a bull run, some of them made money, some of them lost money, and then this ban had gotten a lot of people convinced that crypto is illegal or there's something dangerous. In fact, when I took the job, a couple of well-meaning uncles called up my mother and said, "You've got to warn him. I think it's some sort of scam. Have they sent him a return ticket? Can he come back to the US if it falls apart?" And she was like, it's okay. I talked to the guy. It's fine. So I ended up coming to India, and then the lockdown happened. But as I had hoped, I fell in love with India. I fell in love with not just ZepPay, but a whole kind of culture of especially young people who really just don't see any limit to what they can do. And it's a very exciting time to be working in India, and I'm sure a lot of you represent this attitude. I know this guy does, and that's why it's a lot of fun for me to work here. And what else? I'm in a documentary called God Bless Bitcoin. It's my first time being in a movie, and it's releasing tomorrow. And I just, they sent a link, so all of us who are in the movie got to see it last week. And it's one of the best explanations of blockchain and Bitcoin made. I'm not sure where in India it's releasing, and I'm not sure which OTT platform, but and the producer is supposed to email me with the details. But it's called God Bless Bitcoin. I very selfishly and openly recommend it to all of you. And Parth, you want to tell us about you?
My story is not half as interesting as yours. Basically, I started my career in traditional finance, JP Morgan investment banking, and back in the day, the banks were looking at the technology rather than crypto as an asset. So during my days at JPM, I came across blockchain as a technology, and that for me was the sort of eureka moment. What blockchain represents is the digitization of trust. So come to think of it, it basically removes all the need for a middleman. Like any transaction where there is a middleman involved can be put on the blockchain, and you don't need that middleman anymore. For me, that was what will banks do once this technology sort of gains more acceptance. So I continued working at JPM. There was a new unit that was set up. It's called Onyx now. So that started off with 8 people. Now it has over 200 folks who are looking into how blockchain technology can be used in financial services. But they weren't very vocal about crypto. You might have seen Jamie Dimon say a lot of bad things about Bitcoin. So I decided to move on during the pandemic, move to a full-time crypto role at FalconX. That's an institutional trading platform. So for people who think that crypto is mostly a retail phenomena, there are institutions who are buying crypto big time. Some of the big names that I've worked with are funds related to George Soros, who are buying millions of Bitcoin and trading them. So did that for about a year or so, hardcore OTC trading job, where these markets are 24/7. They don't trade like traditional markets. So it was very stressful. Then I think finally India came out with taxation laws. So once I saw that they've started taxing it, now the fear for the ban is sort of over. That's when I joined CoinSwitch. CoinSwitch is the leading exchange here in India. We have about 20 million registered users. So 2 crore users have come on the platform. And many of them, I would say at least 25% of them are monthly trading. And basically I had Web3 investments for them. So it's a sort of a corporate VC where we are deploying our own balance sheet money into early stage startups who are building in Web3. Small fund, 10 million fund, but we've made about more than 20 investments already. For people who think that, is India a booming place for crypto? There are over 10,000 Web3 developers. We are the 3rd largest market globally in terms of Web3 talent. Personally, I've interacted with more than 500 startups in the space. So a lot of builder activities happening. People are fixated more on the price action, and during bear markets, everybody thought that crypto is dead. But actual people who are interested, and you rightly mentioned, a lot of young energy is there in the space. And they continue to grind through the bear market, and now I think we're finally sort of seeing the signs of that. This cycle will be different with institutions already here, and some retail apps going mainstream. So I'm very bullish. Hopefully next 2 years we'll see a major bull run again.
Before I introduce Prinseps a little bit more, I wanted to just ask you this question. You mentioned Jamie Dimon, and BlackRock is of course also notorious. Whenever they say something negative, it's been shown a few months later that their prop desks have been actually acquiring or buying. I mean, why the need for such a? It's somewhat childish, no? I mean.
So I don't want to comment on Jamie Dimon, but for BlackRock, Larry Fink actually said on record that Bitcoin is an index for money laundering. And 2 years later, BlackRock is they have their own spot Bitcoin ETF. It has over almost close to 20 billion in AUM in less than 6 months. like 20 billion worth of money has come in. BlackRock is selling it to its clients now, basically. So I think the turnaround is, once Jamie Dimon probably has not been able to admit that he could be wrong about something, whereas Larry Fink has been a little more flexible in that sense. The value prop for Bitcoin is pretty clear. It's a hedge against devaluation of currency. And if you see value in gold, you should see value in Bitcoin. That's what Larry Fink, again, like, don't believe me, Larry Fink has said it that Bitcoin is digital gold.
Well, Princeps, so we are an avant-garde art house, and our focus always has been research and bringing historically important but perhaps forgotten artists back in the news with research and pointing out their moment in history, and that art is a continuum, and that modern art probably begins from 1910 and continues to today. And in fact, this current project, which is inscribed on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is why we're meeting here, is inspired from a project from the 1940s. So just to show how a completely contemporary project can rely on technology and have its roots so far back. Moving ahead, you'd mentioned about institutional purchases. I mean, so how do you compare India to overseas? I mean, what do you see in India as a ratio? And
I think India is still very early. I haven't seen any institutional buying as such happening from Indian family offices or ultra HNIs. Maybe they're doing it offshore, but nobody's doing it onshore. But in the US, so the big event that happened was the spot Bitcoin ETF got approved in January, and basically that makes it very easy for anybody who has a trading account to buy Bitcoin exposure. You're not directly buying Bitcoin; you're buying an asset which is tied to Bitcoin prices. And because of that, a lot of institutional buying is happening. They see it as a portfolio diversification tool. So I'm not telling you to buy only Bitcoin. It's supposed to be a part of your portfolio. It cannot be your entire portfolio. So you probably allocate, let's say, 2 to 5% of your portfolio in gold. You can diversify that and hold some Bitcoin as well. And because the price moves up so sharply, it really pushes your risk-adjusted returns higher. So that's the value prop that institutions are seeing. For numbers less than 6 months, BlackRock has put in 20 billion. Fidelity, again, a big traditional finance name, that has over 15 billion. So overall, about 50 billion have come into this space in less than 6 months. People were estimating that probably in the first year we'll see around 20. So I think by the end of the year we'll probably touch 100. Let's see.
Vikram, any updates on the Indian front? I mean, are we regulation or ETFs or anything savvy? Or?
Actually, so in our group that owns ZPay, we have another company called Vested, which offers the Indians the ability to buy US stocks. And Bitcoin ETFs are getting very popular among Indians, and not just through Vested, but through various platforms. I'd say, Bharat, you're right. I think a lot of family offices and HNIs in India are buying overseas. They're doing it very quietly. I've talked to some myself. Sometimes I have a cousin in the US who's going to buy it for me. There are members of parliament and people in government who have crypto and have had it for quite a long time.
Shashi Tharoor had some, when he had to declare the assets recently for the elections, he was holding some crypto.
So it's one of those things that's happening in India. It should be happening openly. I hope it will sooner rather than later.
A quick question for the audience. What's the size of, I'll come to you in a sec, what's the size of the Bitcoin market cap? I mean, what's any ideas? Any guesses? I mean, of course, it's been a very volatile asset, so it's moving around. I just wanted to compare the three, I guess we call them the layer one chains. I mean, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Those are the three that's widely used for things other than just being a currency. Bitcoin, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is around 1.3 trillion or so. 1.3 trillion dollars. Ethereum, I think, is around $500 billion dollars. And Solana, much smaller, I think it's probably $60-70 billion in market cap. That just tells you how large these assets are. And when I say layer one blockchain, there's a reason I said that, and I guess I'm waiting for some more questions from anybody. Sure.
Yes, I would like to ask, when did Prinseps start working on NFTs and AI? What is planning to
His question for everybody is, when did Prinseps start working on AI art and NFTs, and what inspired you to do it?
So the NFT craze happened a few years ago, and it happened with this word called avatars. You must have heard this. The Bored Apes, the CryptoPunks, and what are avatars? Avatars are essentially social media icons that you can use in your Instagram handle or YouTube handle. That it depicts a personality trait or a physical characteristic. And it's instead of using a photograph, you use an avatar. What we discovered is that an Indian artist had actually done a very similar project in the 1940s. And I could not resist but essentially bring that project out onto the digital space. I mean, why should we having a completely new, like what seemed to be a new stream of art called, profile pictures and avatars. The point being that somebody in 1940s had already done something similar. So we took over that, we spoke with the family in collaboration with them. We bought out, we worked on creating a project that recreated the avatars using that 1940s project. So that is the genesis of it. I mean, seeing the craze happen in the Ethereum blockchain and realizing that, hey, we have done this, or a particular artist. I'm sure there are others. I'm sure there are, profile pictures as a study or as different means has been done by many artists in the early part of the 20th century. It's not something that happened new. We were able to work with an artist estate to digitize that and use AI. I'll speak about it more on that and bring it out as, interestingly, as artworks that are inscribed on the Bitcoin blockchain, and that's why I mentioned layer one blockchains. I mean, we have this whole concept where the blockchain or the distributed ledger is now being used for other things, which is always predominantly so in the Ethereum blockchain or let's say the Solana blockchain. Now the Bitcoin blockchain is also having, it's not just a store of value, you can also store artworks on the blockchain. That's a change that's happened just a year ahead. It's a very good question. It is what's happening even in the traditional art space. If you go to a lot of the art schools these days, there is a certain aspect of draftsmanship and using pen on ink or oil on canvas, etc. But a lot of the tools that are being used are digital tools. Sometimes digital tools are used and finally the printout may be executed on canvas, but a lot of the tools that people are learning and using are all digital. So, art is changing. It is, art is constantly evolving, and I do feel that we live in a digital world. I mean, we're going to live more and more in a digital world where the artwork will be more and more digitally executed. We will have frame TVs look like canvases where digital artworks will be displayed. We'll have, instead of a small, we'll have maybe a whole wall of a TV where a digital artwork is, so size is no longer an issue. So all of these changes are happening in the art world as we speak. So it's nothing, NFTs happen because a lot of the artworks that have been created are digitally being made. Certainly some of the names that have come up, like Beeple, and you look at his artworks, they're very in-depth in the number of layering or the story or the narrative, exactly as you would have a very in-depth work of art done on oil of canvas. So art itself is changing, and so therefore NFT, all it says is who the owner is. It's on the blockchain. The owner's name is on the blockchain, allowing you to trade. That's the advantage an NFT has, but art is turning digital.
So if I can just probably add to that, so think of NFTs as like a digital stamp that this particular artwork belongs to somebody. So it can actually be tied to real world art as well. A lot of people are trying to do that. Basically, you have like a sort of, it becomes like the transparency layer as to who is the actual owner. And if you want to sell the rights for that particular physical good, you can just sell the NFT, and the ownership passes on to the next person. So that's how the two things are related. In the digital sense, like again, I personally see it as like more and more as we move into the digital realm. All these communities, like NFT is basically a community. So if you've seen Bored Apes or CryptoPunks, there are just like 10,000 of them. You can obviously right click or like take a screenshot of that particular image, but you will never own the digital signature for that piece of art. Whoever is assigned to that will be there on the blockchain for everybody to see. And I think that's pretty unique. Even in the world of physical art, there are a lot of forgeries, or people try to fraud people on like something which is not really belonging to them, but it just gives you a digital sense of ownership.
Hi. So when you mentioned Bored Ape, like I've been seeing a lot of its arts. Now, when it comes to the physical world, basically you've got the Husseins and Van Goghs of the world, right? And they're not replicated in the form of like Hussein probably has not done 10,000 art pieces. But when you see this Bored Ape and the other guys, there are like tens and thousands. So when you probably want to own one piece, like you might even probably buy it from an exchange and you have your digital signature on it. But there are tens of thousands of people owning it, so how does one basically select a piece of art on NFT where you can probably hold value maybe? Otherwise, what will happen is like tomorrow, one click of a button with AI, there'll be 10,000 more Bored Apes, which is created in a fraction of a second.
So with AI, I think it actually becomes more, the use case for blockchain becomes more like real. Like you can actually stamp what has been created by humans or what has been created by generative AI. And in terms of valuing, so think of CryptoPunks were the first NFTs. So they are sort of like cave paintings. So as cave paintings have value, so CryptoPunks will always have value as being the first, PFP that went viral. Bored Apes have more of a community value assigned to it. So the 10,000 Bored Ape users, they meet every year in 3 different events that happen globally. You get gated access to certain events. You are eligible for airdrops of other tokens. Because you're a Bored Ape holder, people value you in the digital community, and they'll give you like free tokens. So all that, it basically is a social status of sorts that you own a Bored Ape, and more so in the digital realm rather than like real.
More like you've taken a
Membership.
membership, Jolie.
Yeah, it is like a membership.
Can I
You connect to a community.
give you some more perspective on that? I mean, so here's a question. Somebody mentioned CryptoPunks. Do we know what the market cap for the CryptoPunk project is, which is 10,000 artworks? Any ideas, any guesses in the room? Or Bored Apes for that matter? Any guesses what the size of the market cap for these artworks would be? I believe, I hope I'm not mistaken about this, but I think the CryptoPunks have $1 billion market cap, and the Bored Apes have around 200 or 300 million dollar market cap. They are they are huge. When you mentioned Hussein, if you convert the valuation to dollars, they wouldn't even come close to this. So the issue of being 10,000 is not relevant at all in a sense. The valuations are huge. And what we are here to talk about today is partly NFTs on the Bitcoin blockchain, which just started a year ago. It started, I think, February or March in 2023. The market cap for that is already $1 billion. Already $1 billion in a year. This is including any fall that you may have seen in the last 2 weeks, or those are. Somebody's told me that in crypto, these excessive, huge spikes and falls are great because they give you joy and sorrow, and you're in it for the emotions. I forget who it was, but the point is that the market cap is $1 billion for these ordinals within a year. So the point, and the reason for that is very simple. Digital art now has an ownership, has a provenance. Who owns it? It's very clearly mentioned. And it can be traded in seconds in an exchange. It doesn't have to be, it's not an illiquid asset anymore. So this is a game changer when it comes to Bitcoin art, I guess.
The eventual question what comes in everyone's mind, especially over here, because it's a very much still of a gray area, especially by the government, the way they've approached, this whole Bitcoin system. Like you very well said, it's basically like in a common man's term, it's like a hawala. Like like people call you park the money somewhere else, you got it somewhere else, and there's no practical intimation to the government that's going, at least for now in India, right? So, like to own any of these things, eventually you need the digital currency, which is in the form of any of these coins, which is there. So, today, as of now, is there still a clarity whether you can officially by law own any
So-
kind of cryptos?
So it is still in the gray area. There's no laws around it, and again, it's not just India; it's global. What is happening now is we're finally seeing some big jurisdictions come out with laws. So Europe now has something called MiCA. So across the European Union, if you are dealing in crypto, you have to get licenses, and they have already rolled it out starting July. Like there'll be legal ways to buy crypto in Europe. Dubai already has a regulator. It's called VARA, Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority. Only focusing on virtual assets, they are giving out licenses. India's, you have to get an FIU registration. So anybody who's dealing in crypto, like CoinSwitch for that matter, or ZepPay, or even Prinseps
also
now,
registered.
FIU registered. So basically, any transaction will be reported to the FIU. And when you say na hawala, I think it's the worst form to send money using Bitcoin or blockchain, because everything can be traced. Because like everything is in the public ledger. Like if we could show you, there's literally a website where you can go and see how many transactions are going in each block, who from which wallet to which wallet are they being transferred. It's just that who's behind the wallet, that you need to figure out. And there are so many tools for that. As part of CoinSwitch, we try to engage with government bodies. So we've done trainings for cops. Like I went to the Calcutta cyber cell and basically gave them like a brief on how you can just trace something. Next day they were able to retrieve 45 Bitcoin. And there was like one of their biggest hauls, and literally there's one tool called chain analysis. You can just use that and figure out like who's behind the wallet.
I would like to also further point out, you mentioned about art and copy and how do you know original, what do you need to look out for when you're looking to buy an NFT, let's say, whether it's on the Ethereum chain or on the Bitcoin chain. I do believe that dynamics are almost identical to the physical art market. You are looking to buy something which is creative, which is unique, where there's a narrative, and that does not change. Even in the physical art market, there are a lot of people who get heavily inspired copy of somebody else. Those are not considered to be collectible art. Even in the digital space, there are heavily inspired copies of original artworks. They are not meant to be collectible. Yes, unfortunately, some of them may have a price, but they're not meant to be collectible. And it's the same in the physical art space. The dynamics are identical.
Just ask a few. I'd like to get to know you guys a little better so that we talk about things that are not boring to you. So I always end up whenever I'm on a panel, I end up being the one who dumbs everything down. And I'm beginning to think that says something about me, but I'll ask a few dumb questions. How many of you have ever owned or currently own Bitcoin or some other crypto? Okay, this is almost half. Yeah. How many of you have ever owned an NFT? Wow, very nice.
Is there something on the right side versus the left?
Well, there is now. I think these guys are looking down on them. And how many of you are interested in Bitcoin or crypto as an investment, as part of your portfolio along with your stocks, your gold, and your other things? Okay, quite a few of you. All right. And how many of you would be interested in maybe buying an NFT or an NFT on Bitcoin as either for fun or to brag to your friends about it, or as an investment, or all of the above? How many would consider it? Okay, yeah. I think that helps.
The demand is there, but
Clearly.
ZepPay or coins, we need to start thinking about.
There was actually like WazirX launched
Yeah.
an NFT marketplace, but in India, actually the problem is like both from the demand as well as the supply side. Like there are not a lot of digital artists who are like NFT friendly in that sense. So they had to shut down their business. But I think again like the use case is there. It will just like the arts market in India is growing. So sooner than later it will probably move into the digital realm as well.
Yeah.
It's already there in the digital realm. I mean, there are a lot of artists who, as I said, are essentially producing digital art and video art or animation art. I mean, and certainly it makes for large displays. I mean, when you're looking at displays in in spaces that are large, that digital art is the way to go. I mean, there's no arguing on that.
Actually, one like caveat away from what we've been discussing is what is Web3. So you basically have to understand why this becomes very powerful for content creators. So Web 1 was the static web where you only used to read things. So if you remember where you just go on the internet, you read about something, you can't really contribute. Then came Web 2, the read and write web, where you could actually go and post your pictures, post your videos, write on walls. The problem was everything was controlled by platforms. So Facebook, actually, you don't own that artwork, or you don't own the content that you create. It is owned by YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Web 3 is read, write, and own. So once you create something on the blockchain, you have digital rights for that particular piece of art or content. So let's say you create an NFT, you can actually put in a clause for royalty. Whenever somebody trades that NFT, you will get paid in return. That doesn't happen in the physical world like that easily. Similarly for content, like YouTube takes away, I think, a chunk of video content that you create. If you there are live dApps or decentralized apps where you can place content. Anytime somebody watches it, some royalty comes back to the creator. So I think like for creators, Web3 is a very powerful narrative.
Yeah, I mean, being able to know the provenance of an artwork that's open for the entire world to see, because and the entire set of transactions is extremely powerful. I had a question for you. I know you have a view on the levels of Bitcoin, so I'm putting you on the spot because I've had a discussion with you or I've heard you talk about it before. Can you give us your insights as to, I mean, are we going to go from 60,000+ to where?
Where is Bitcoin going?
Where? I mean, I'm putting you on the spot because I've heard you say have a theory behind this. So
Yeah, Parth mentioned that people should try to consider having maybe 2 to 5% of their net worth in crypto. I have about 60% of my net worth is in Bitcoin, and it wasn't that way at all when I joined ZedPay. I had almost nothing in Bitcoin. I had very little crypto, and learning about it and becoming comfortable with it was a process for me. Now, but see, the thing is, I am a trader, and just because I've had years of experience at it, trading is not something most people should do. Most of you shouldn't do it. I was talking to a friend who said, she wants to learn about trading, and we'll talk about it, but it's not something that the average person should really do. In fact, I'm not sure I even enjoy it. I just am good at it now after all this time. I'm not sure I'm even an investor because I don't plan to ever sell my Bitcoin. I'm an acquirer of Bitcoin, and I will continue to acquire more. And the reason is this: the value that I create in the world by whatever I do, I want to own that value. I want to retain that value. I want to keep that value. I don't want it taken away from me by inflation. Okay? So all this stuff that we're talking about, if I'm an artist and I create a sculpture, or a painting, I want people to know that I'm the one who did it. I don't want my neighbor to secretly go and make an imitation of it and try to sell it and make money off of my creative work. I don't want people making copies of my stuff and taking credit away from me. So what are we talking about? We're talking about ownership of the value you create. That might be creative value in the form of an artwork. It might be just getting paid for a service or a product that you provide. It might be in my really sort of base capitalistic thing, just the value created by buying low and selling high, which is a pretty awful kind of a thing, but you get paid to do that, right? It's ownership. It's the right to property. And that right to property is a basic human right, which some people who have power get more of than the rest of us. And Bitcoin was created really to remove the middlemen who take away our right to store the value that we create in a trustworthy way. That's what we're talking about with all of these things. Is that artwork genuine? Was it really created by the person that he says it's created by? You know, and can I, having purchased it, have some reasonable trust that there aren't going to be 20 other copies being sold of it and diluting the value of my unique piece of art that I own, that is my property, right? Which I've exchanged my hard-earned some other value for. Okay, so there's a basic. People ask, you know, what is crypto backed by? The U.S. dollar is backed by the U.S. government. The rupee is backed by the Indian government. Kind of, and I don't like to get into those arguments about whether fiat currency is really backed by anything. It's not backed by gold anymore, and those kind of things. It's an interesting argument, maybe, but it's not relevant, I think. The main thing is, why do we even have money? It's for certain basic human needs. We create value in this world. We want that value to be recorded and rewarded, right? If you perform a service for me, and then next week you say, hey, you remember last week I helped you out, can you do me a favor now? I should remember it. And I should be grateful and say, yeah, of course, you really helped me out last week, what can I do for you? This is how successful societies run. If we all go, nah, I don't really remember, or, no, I don't feel like helping you now, society breaks down. And yet we have systems in place right now that are causing that kind of fracturing, right? Middlemen who just stand in the way and say, oh no, you can't help her until you pay me a fee for helping you to help her. I'm like, who the hell are you? Why are you getting in the way of my transaction between myself and my friend? So that's at the heart of all of this. I just wanted to say, when you hear about all this fancy terminology, just remember, it's the right to property and the right to store the value that you create in a trusted way.
So I can just probably add to it, like, again, in the entire crypto universe, there are more than 14,000, like, you know, big crypto tokens. There's Bitcoin and there's the rest of crypto.
Yeah.
So, like, please, like, consider whenever you're investing in crypto, like, Bitcoin is a separate asset, rest of crypto is separate. The value proposition for Bitcoin is scarcity. Like, it can be digitally proven that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Already more than 19 million have been mined. So the way that you can get Bitcoin is you can mine it or you can buy it from somebody else. Because like people like Vikram, myself included, I will never sell my Bitcoin. So if everybody continues to hold on to their Bitcoin, new supply, the supply schedule for Bitcoin, that's also fixed and it keeps reducing. So there is going to be, like, you know, a lot of pressure on price. Demand for Bitcoin increases, supply keeps on reducing, price keeps going up. It happens in cycles. It has been happening since 2009 when the network started, and I think that's the main value proposition that anybody who's getting into this asset class should understand. Treat Bitcoin as digital gold. Treat rest of crypto as probably a high tech growth stock or something.
And to answer your question, Indrajit, it's currently, my watch shows $65,000 per Bitcoin at the moment. I'm absolutely sure it'll go to $1 million within the next 10 years per Bitcoin. Now you can still buy 100 rupees worth of Bitcoin at a time, and you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. So if anybody's thinking it's too late, I should have bought it when it was $100, I should have bought it when it was $1,000. People who saw the price at $1,000 and said, oh, it's too late, I should have bought it when it was 100, and then they saw it at $10,000 and they said, oh man, I wish I bought it at 1,000. There will be people who are sitting at, when it's $500,000 of Bitcoin saying, oh, I should have bought it when it was 65,000, right? But if you're holding, a few years from now, when I'm holding bitcoins that cost $500,000 each, I won't even remember did I buy it at $50,000 or $70,000 or what. I'll just be glad I bought it. So that's my perspective on it.
I would like to add perspective from the side of art. And going back to, again, a good question that you asked. So we inscribed these artworks on the Bitcoin blockchain, and that gives us an ability, we were able to inscribe in a universe which is $1.3 trillion in size, which is very unique in a sense. I mean, it is impossible for me to have an art project and market it to such a universe. But part of the reason why we did what we did is because there were a lot of what I call copycat projects that should not have been a part of the blockchain, but nobody can stop anybody from doing so. This project that we did, we bought the copyright. I mean, we worked with the artist estate to collaborate with the artist estate to take the copyright of the images. And we wanted to make something really cutting edge. So we actually trained what's called a generative adversarial model. This is a neural network, it's an AI concept. And we trained an AI engine to learn the artist's style from these works that we got from the artist estate. And it wasn't a small technological challenge to overcome, because these neural networks need 10,000 images, 20,000 images, 100,000 images to get trained. We trained it originally by just having 50 artworks from the artist, and we did a lot of tricks that we're going to formalize and standardize for future projects. And we were able to create 10,000 original artworks, each of them being different. And I would just like to point out the project has been so successful that we asked GPT-4. GPT-4 was not used to make this project. This was created using a neural network, as it trained after a lot of iterations. We asked GPT-4, what do you think of this artwork? You will be surprised. GPT-4 is the latest and greatest in AI technology, just came out a few months ago. It started to compare this artwork with Paul Klee and Picasso. And I further asked this GPT-4, hey, is this oil on canvas work? He said, yeah, actually, you know what, the strokes, the composition, etc. lead me to believe that this is an oil on canvas work. The point is, this is almost like a Skynet moment, like Terminator movie. I have this great, where the Skynet machine is turned on and the machines take over. I mean, that's a very negative example, I guess, but an AI engine has learned how to create artworks in the style of an artist, is creating newer artworks. And when I say an AI engine, I mean a neural network. And that, the latest, GPT-4 is not able to recognize as an AI artwork. It's saying, yes, it looks original, it comes from the 40s, and it has influences of Paul Klee and Picasso, and it looks like an oil on canvas. That is a huge moment in art. And that is the thesis behind this project.
So these artworks, Gen AI artworks, are they for sale? And where are they listed on some platform? And how do you bring about it? And is it within investors, is it ready for this kind of?
So this is legitimate modern art. We will have entire profile picture project size, which is 10,000. Currently, only 300 are listed on Magic Eden. We are ourselves registered to theoretically sell these. As I said, we are registered under the FIU as a virtual asset provider. So we are looking into extending our platform into selling this from our online presence in India itself instead of overseas. But having said that, this is art, this is AI art. It's modern art, it's unique, and we want it to be international as well. So I'm not sure exactly how it gets marketed, but we're just here to discuss the initial output.
Probably you can start like a community of the owners of this, like what Bored Apes did, and basically all the big projects, like the NFT projects that have really scaled, they have that community angle attached to them.
I think that's the huge thing about it. It took me forever to understand NFTs. I still don't. I saw a lot of you raising your hands that you own NFTs. I'm puzzled by all of you, honestly, because I own a couple of NFTs, but I got them more just to donate to as donations.
Drops.
Yeah. Well, no. For me to give a donation to somebody by buying their NFT, I think it's gone to zero now. I don't, I have it in some wallet. But community seems to be the thing. Can I ask any of you who own NFTs? Do you get some access to some community? Do you talk to other people who own NFTs in the same series? Anybody here? Because for Bored Apes particularly,
Bored Apes has a
Bored
great
Apes is just
idea,
a-
but I have a
it's just a
slightly
fancy
different
people's
viewpoint.
club.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think when the first NFT craze happened on the Ethereum blockchain, community was very important. But I think it is an NFT is all it says is who owns the artwork and how to trade it very quickly. Art is turning digital. So I'm not sure if a community is as important as an original work of art that gets criticized by art critics, that gets exhibited, that gets spoken about, that collectors love. I mean, I think the dynamics will be the same, and I'm not entirely sure about community.
I think the difference there is like, there are projects like Bored Apes which are more community oriented. Then there are projects like People's art. People creates digital art, and people want to own them as a sign of like you want to own MF Hussain. People like sold I think for 69 million. That was the highest ever traded NFT, and it's purely digital. Like there's no physical copy to it. That sort of a transaction is happening more for the ownership rights to it versus a Bored Ape where you want to be part of the community.
I will say this though, that there is a certain section of artwork like the meme coins, which entirely seem to be about community.
I think there's communities, small communities that like centered around the latest meme coin, which in some cases people will have forgotten 2 months later, right? It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. There's also what you described about buying a work of art, having it critiqued, sharing it with others who may also critique it, compare it to other things, even have an AI compare it to the work of Klee and Picasso, having a human then compare it to the work of Klee, or saying, I know a new artist whose work is, sort of similar in some way, and having that discussion. That's not just a community, that's actually entering, what do you do when you start to become an art collector? You enter the art world, I guess is what people would call it, right? You go and you get an MFA from a university, or you get a fine arts degree, you become a member of a museum society or something like that. You're part of the art world, right? And we even use that expression. And so I think there is still, it's funny, we're talking about these very difficult technologies, generative AI and blockchain and all. But behind it, I still see these basic human needs to belong and to be counted, remembered. Sorry if that became too
well said.
philosophical, but I know that that's what drives the price of Bitcoin, which is why I trust it so much. Bitcoin wasn't created just to give people a new way to gamble. It was created to solve specific problems with the way the world works right now.
We are probably very close to the end, but before we do, any questions, and I will insist on a couple. Yes.
What sets this project apart from typical NFT?
What's a lot of NFT projects that have come out are essentially what we call doodle projects, or pixel art, where the art itself is very simplistic. This does not follow that pattern at all. This is modern art. This is, I won't use the word thick impasto, but it's rich in colors. It's got variation. It's got heat. It's modernism. It's simple as that. I don't know how else to describe it. Any other questions?
These NFTs, so are these Prinseps selling them, or is there an artist behind this?
So we collaborated with an artist who made initial artworks in the 1940s. That
Because AI created them, you can't
The-
claim that the artist has created these 10,000 images.
the original copyright belongs to the artist. So
For those 50 works that you put in the AI.
yes, for those 50 works, those are copyrighted. In fact, they're copyrighted by the US Copyright Authority. These are, that's why we're launching these as NFTs. It's first come, so if somebody, let's say, copies this exact image and makes another version of this, that's a blatant copy of this work, I guess. And this is in the blockchain. This has an owner. Maybe the question you're asking is, can we copyright this image? Given that it's a derivative of an artwork.
No, but the artist himself hasn't created this work.
That's right, but it is derived from an artist's oeuvre. How he used to paint, how he used to have his style. So, and given that the original artworks are copyrighted, I think it'll be that's another level of protection that you have, in a sense that these have been created, or the AI engine has been trained from artworks that are copyrighted artworks that are not just taken off Flickr or some public source. So that's the level of protection that we have gone into. That's a very good question, though.
I have one more question about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin originally, I think, was created to use as a financial tender and eliminate the middleman, as you guys were talking about. Now it's mostly used as an asset class and people invest. So do you think that's the future of Bitcoin, or will it actually come to its original use case of using it to actually do transactions, buy things?
So I don't think Bitcoin layer 1 will ever be used for paying for your coffee or paying for pizza. Like, if you know, Bitcoin Pizza Day is literally celebrated because the first transaction somebody paid 10,000 BTC for 2 pizzas. So I don't think that is going to happen. But so there are solutions on top of Bitcoin which are much faster. So if I send you some Bitcoin, it'll take you 10 minutes for from one address to another. But if I use a layer 2, which is like a solution built on top of Bitcoin, it can happen in seconds, and the fees is like negligible. So the use case for Bitcoin is probably going to be the layer 1 big value transactions. Let's say if I have to send $1 billion, if I want to do that using bank channels, it will probably take 5 days. It'll cost me like a bomb. On the Bitcoin network, I can do it for $2-3 or something in terms of fees. But for micro transactions, or for very frequent transactions, it's going to be layer 2s or layer 3s built on top of Bitcoin. Vikram, I think you can also add.
That was very good. Yeah. Now, eventually we will be able to transact in Satoshis. The main problem is this 10-minute time to clear it. So layer 2s are designed to do that. They just bundle a whole lot of transactions into one unit, reconcile it off the chain, and then put the final result on there.
So it's already happening. I think there are a couple of companies that you can look at. Strike, which does it on Bitcoin Lightning Network, and it's being used for remittance. Like, so people in the Philippines or in Latin America, they are using Bitcoin for sending money across borders.
Indian authorities got that.
There are companies that you can actually use it to get into India, but again, that company has to be FIU registered. The problem in India is taxes. So if you get Bitcoin, there is a cost of acquisition and the cost at which you sell it. The difference you have to pay 30%. So if you are getting it cost of acquisition 0 and you sell it at 100, you have to pay the 30% on that. So which is
Wallet-to-wallet transactions allowed for Indian users.
It is allowed. Unless you convert it into INR, you don't have to pay any taxes. So if you have USDT, you're giving me USDT, there's no tax that the government can charge. When I convert it into INR, that's when I have to pay a tax.
When you get into the bank, you mean, or
yes, when you convert, use payment rails, traditional payment rails, then you have to pay tax.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Vikram. Thanks, Parth. That was superb. Thanks for those questions. Really appreciate it. And I believe we have drinks in the next room, so please do join us. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.